this is the quarterly meeting of the Southwest Region Planning Commission's Economic Development Advisory Committee. So good afternoon, everybody. And what we've decided to do is use this format and this meeting as an opportunity to share information relative to some economic impact created by the present public health emergency, COVID-19. We held a similar meeting a week ago with good results. We had some real great discussion. Some good people came in and shared with us some of the new and emerging and soon to becoming available programs and opportunities to help out, as I say, in this crisis situation. A lot of economic disruption, as we all know. And so what we'd like to do today is just continue that discussion. More information is coming available. We have some presenters today, or folks who have agreed to share information with us, and that's kind of the format for the meeting. If you have access to the agenda for today's meeting, I'm wrapping up what I'll just call that very first item, welcome. We won't go around the virtual table and introduce, but we are recording the meeting for posterity, and we'll have a sense of everybody who's in. Todd, you did mention some folks are in via telephone, so I don't know if there's a way for us to at some point capture those people so we know who they are. And maybe if we could just take a moment, Todd, and have you describe to folks how they can participate in today's meeting, because what we're going to do with this next agenda item, which is really the meat of our meeting agenda, is to hear from individuals who can bring some information to the table. And as each individual has a chance to speak, there'll be opportunities for participants to go to the chat box and pose questions or share thoughts, comments, whatnot. And then after each presenter, Todd will be monitoring from Command Central there the raising of hands, and so people can be recognized and unmuted to go ahead and ask a question. And then we'll move on to the next presenter. So Todd, I'm going to turn it over to you just to go over the technological side of things.
Sure, Tim. I recognize that we're all quickly becoming experts on Zoom and other virtual meeting platforms, but just to make sure we're all on the same page in terms of how to participate, when you've entered the meeting today, your mics is muted. So if you want to unmute your microphone to speak, you'll see an icon in your lower left-hand corner. If you're joining via desktop, we do recommend, if you're joining by desktop or a personal computer, to use the chat function to ask questions. It can get a little bit hectic if everyone's trying to jump in at the same time with a question. You can raise your hand if you want to ask a question verbally, and a little icon will pop up next to your name or telephone number, and we can unmute your microphone for you, so it just keeps things moving a bit more smoothly. If you're on your phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9, and the raised hand icon will appear next to your telephone number. For folks who are joining via their computer, to get to that raised hand icon, you need to click on that participants icon first, and then you'll get a menu in the participants window with a few different options, one of which is raising or lowering your hand. So make sure to use that. That's where that functionality is. It's hidden behind that participants icon. Again, the microphone icon you can use to mute or unmute yourself. If you're on your phone, you can unmute yourself or mute yourself using *6. And I believe Rich Clough is on the line at the SWRPC office. If you run into anything, feel free to give the office a call at 603-382-5500. area code 603-357-0557, or indicate any problems through the chat as well for folks on their computer. But that's the quick primer, and I think, Tim, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Todd, and all the important information. Restrooms are, well, you know where they are. So I'm surveying attendees, and we do have representatives of our federal delegation, which is great. But is Tom Giancola from Congresswoman Kuster's office with us? Am I coming through?
Yes, Tim, I can hear you.
Okay.
Hi, sorry, I was on mute. Can you hear me now?
Hi,
yes.
Tom.
Hi, Tim. Thank you very much for hosting and inviting me.
Yeah, no, we appreciate you joining us, and I'm wondering if you're in a position, Tom, to share with us maybe some information from Congresswoman Kuster and your office.
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity. We are working hard. The Congresswoman's working hard addressing the public health aspects of this crisis, as well as the economic impacts. As our activities relate to this body's work in economic development, I'll focus on those activities, which are largely twofold. One, specifically addressing the business community directly through the Small Business Administration, including several programs that were created as part of the CARES Act, as well as addressing funding for municipal governments. I'll start there first, and then touch briefly on the SBA programs. So just this week, we introduced a bill, which we worked closely with the Northern Borders Regional Commission on, to waive the 20% match requirement for NBRC applicants. So, you know, we heard from NBRC that a lot of towns, you know, there's a lot of uncertainty regarding coming up with matching funds, whether those come from the state or private foundations or from municipal coffers. The grant, the federal funding requires that 20% of the total project comes from a non-federal source. So we introduced legislation to waive that requirement. So certainly be able to keep you all posted as that moves forward. We're certainly hopeful that it will end up passing, and we can get some much needed relief in terms of the match requirement to municipalities and other applicants here in New Hampshire. Also, the Congresswoman just a few days ago, or yesterday actually, helped introduce legislation to provide $250 billion to local communities in coronavirus stabilization funds. So these funds would specifically go to towns and cities with under 500,000 people in their population. So, you know, again, we're trying to focus our efforts on helping lower population municipalities, rural towns, and counties here in New Hampshire. So again, we'll certainly keep you posted on progress with that. And if you'd like to track that one, it's called the Coronavirus Community Relief Act, and that was introduced yesterday. So with that, I'll shift to the Small Business Administration programs. I don't know if we have someone from SBA on the call. Is that the case, Tim?
We did at our meeting last week, Tom, and we had some good information. But if I know we have some different people in today's meeting, so go ahead.
Sure. Okay. Well, that's great to hear. In that case, I'll just mention that we wrote a letter to House leadership asking for additional funding for those programs. It's one of those things where we introduced the funding level and are now seeing that there's a very high demand for these loans, particularly with the payroll protection program loans. There's a very high demand for those, so we have requested additional funding for those. So I can touch briefly on the programs. I would recommend, I can give you some information for folks that have application-specific questions to get those directly over to the Small Business Administration office. But I can touch briefly, I guess I'll start with the payroll protection program that I mentioned. These are loans up to $10 million that are designed for businesses to keep their employees on staff. We want to be able to incentivize companies to keep people on payroll, and this program does that by providing funds up to $10 million for all payroll expenses, including paying your employees, premiums for health insurance that the company is responsible for paying, as well as rent, mortgage, and utilities. There's specific guidelines on which specific expenses are eligible for total forgiveness of those expenses over an 8-week period. So companies are able to pay their people for 8 weeks, and all of the money that goes to that is forgiven out of that loan. And then there is the economic injury disaster relief loans. These are loans up to $2 million that can be amortized over up to 30 years at a fixed 3.75% interest rate for for-profit businesses and 2.75% for nonprofit businesses. Those are, again, designed to meet all of the needs of businesses to spend that money on operational expenses, capital expenditure, etc., and get that money into the hands of those folks quickly, and be able to have amicable terms on those loans. So if anyone has any questions, I can try to help answer them, and if I can't, I can direct you to some folks that do know the answers over at SBA. Additionally, I would recommend that any folks on the phone that have a business that are interested, the Small Business Development Center is offering their services through free advisors that can help walk you through the process, and I can give you their website with their advisor set up as well, and they have some great resources on their website.
Tom, that's
so
great.
That'll open it up to any questions.
Yeah, we're going to do that in just a moment. And I wanted to ask you, Tom, are you in a position to add that information, the web link information, in the chat box?
I'm joining by phone, but
okay.
Let me click on the link in Todd's email, and I will try to do that. If not, I will send that via email to Todd to distribute to anyone on the phone. So let me try to figure that out. Can't make any promises, but I will try to get on the chat box here and get that information.
Yeah, just email Todd, and we'll get that sent around. So yeah, at our meeting last week, we were joined by Rachel Roderick, who is the Deputy District Director of SBA's New Hampshire District Office. And so thanks for bringing up those important programs. Opportunity for questions of Tom Giancola. If you could just raise your hand and Todd will recognize you, or enter it in the chat box. Todd, you seeing anyone?
Hey, Kim.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Mad.
Hi, Mad. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, listen, any of these programs that, you know, we can put out on in our own websites, et cetera, are probably important. So links, et cetera, are very helpful. Trying to correlate all these different resources is becoming a little bit unmanageable. So, you know, the best way to do it is to be able to refer to actual links, because links change over time. And of course, besides wanting to put information out to small businesses to survive, the recovery side of this is going to become very important. So, you know, we'll be looking for information related to on the recovery side as it becomes available as well. You know, the cities are going to take, the cities and towns and counties are going to take a hit, just like businesses will as well.
Absolutely, and the new legislation that I mentioned that the Congresswoman helped introduce, the Coronavirus Community Relief Act, is specifically designed to be able to inject more funding into counties and municipalities. You know, like I said, with under 500,000 in population. So we're definitely hearing from a lot of municipalities. We're working closely with the New Hampshire Municipal Association on these initiatives, and we're working to get additional funding to those entities. With regard to links, I think that the Small Business Development Center has done a great job in sort of aggregating all of the information. They've you know, have a really great landing page there. I also know that the state Business and Economic Affairs Department also has a really great website that I can include as well, that has sort of been an aggregator of these programs as well. Additionally, there are daily webinars twice a day hosted by the Small Business Administration. And I can get the call-in information out as well. So any help that anyone can be in terms of dispersing this information, spreading it wide and far, would be super helpful.
Thanks, Tom. And Med, to your point about links and making that stuff available. So Todd is working to, and I think he's going to mention at some point in today's meeting, launching a link here. Actually, it's a dedicated web page to COVID-19 relief. And much of that is, Kevin, I see you're pointing out too, that there's a lot of duplication right now. So we're not trying to reinvent what others have. Rather, you can go to this this dedicated web page and find connections to other ongoing websites like that offered by the New Hampshire Department of Business and Economic Affairs. I think that's one that Kevin's highlighting. So anyway, really good points here. Any other questions of Tom? We've got a couple other, at least one other, if not a couple other folks from federal delegation staff. I know.
Yeah, Tim, I see that Erika over at Southern New Hampshire Services has her hand raised. So if Erika, if you have a quick question, you're unmuted at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Tom, I'm just wondering what the conversation at the federal level is for not today's help, but down the road, where I see families who have maybe not been able to pay rent for 3 months, all of a sudden that changes and rent is due again and evictions are happening again, but they're not making twice as much money to pay like double rent. Are there conversations at the federal level about that?
Yes, and I think that, you know, this is happening very rapidly, and it's such a fluid situation. The CARES Act, the previous two funding packages were in direct response to the rapidly evolving and ongoing situation as it happens right now. I do know that our legislative team down in DC is working hard on additional packages coming forward. And I think, you'll start to see in the coming weeks ahead a more clear picture on what that will look like in terms of an economic recovery, as that plays out. We're hopeful that we are taking steps to mitigate some of those impacts going forward, so we can, be proactive in preventing, a greater economic loss with these programs that we're laying out right now. So people have money in their pockets, businesses have capital, banks have liquidity. We're trying to take the steps to mitigate, but we certainly understand the need for an ongoing recovery effort, and more details will be available in the coming weeks on what that will look like from a legislative standpoint.
Thank you.
Great, good question there. So I know we have Michele Cota from Senator Shaheen's office, and did I see Bobby Graham is also in on the meeting from Senator Hassan's office? So if so, either of you, if you're ready to jump in.
Yeah, and just for folks who are on the phone, just to remind you, I can't necessarily see what your name if you're just joining by phone. So to unmute yourself on your phone, press *6, and that will let you talk.
Hi, Todd and Tim. I can go next. This is
Thanks,
Michele
Michele.
Cota from Senator Shaheen's office. And as Tom did a really great job summarizing where the programs are right now, especially in terms of the distribution of the state allocations and the business programs, the economic injury disaster loan, which has been running for quite some time now, for a few weeks, and then the paycheck protection plan. That one opened up on Friday. It was a little bit of a bumpy start, as you all are aware of. It's quite an undertaking that has never been done on this magnitude before, but I do know that the entire delegation worked hard to reach out to Treasury and to the SBA to tell them that we need more guidance. Our lenders need more guidance, our borrowers need guidance, and a lot of that actually did come out on Monday afternoon this week. So I've heard reports, especially of our community banks, that have hit the ground running with the paycheck protection plan, and they have issued they're working pretty much through the night. It's the pace that they're working is incredible, but they are issuing loans. Well, not really issuing. I think that they have gotten approvals for loans, and they're working on setting closing dates for those, which they have timelines for many companies of starting to get their loan as of early next week. So that's moving right along. And also we heard some updates from the Small Business Administration that they've taken steps to improve their efficiencies at the DC office. And they do anticipate that the EIDL grants should start being administered. The checks should really start going out at a more timely fashion this week or early next week as well. So I think there was a lot of quick organization that had to happen with these agencies, and they seem to be getting a system in place for that. So I just want to also echo what Tom said perfectly, is that the Small Business Development Center is a great resource to help businesses find out how to piece these different programs together, federal and state programs, in a way that it best suits that each business specific needs. So that's definitely an important resource. And I saw that Kevin Peterson shared that information earlier in the Zoom chat. So the Small Business Development Center information is out there. And also, in addition to the Small Business Development Center and the SBA hosting webinars on a regular basis, the BIA also has quite a lineup of webinars that are free, not just to members. It's all businesses can sign up for these. And I know next Monday they have one, which is a huge Q&A on the PPP program, FMLA, unemployment, and more of those programs. So they have a variety of, a panelist of experts on that one, just taking questions on that. So that is also available. A status update, as I mentioned, I think a couple weeks ago, Senator Shaheen is one of the 4 main leads in the Senate side for negotiating the business package of these relief bills, and they are currently negotiating and working on the elements of the 4th package. So as we talked about before, the need for recovery, of course, we're still in the relief and the imminent support stage, or not quite in recovery, but any ideas or any feedback that you guys have that we should be passing forward to our legislative teams, do not hesitate to reach out to any of us in the delegation. So, I think that's pretty good. I do just a couple other things. I know that the state of New Hampshire is going to get about 1.2 billion of a set aside. It's already gotten 4.9 million of that. There's more coming. I also know that for additional programs, I think I saw that the community development block grants are on the agenda. That's about a total of 7.49 million that's going to the state of New Hampshire. And then there's additional set asides for homeless populations, reimbursing for low-income heating, childcare, schools, transit, that type. So there's even more set asides that are going to be delivered to the state of New Hampshire to administer. So, thank you.
Michele, thanks. And we'll open it up to questions in just a moment, but I just wanted to your comment a moment ago about moving towards recovery. I know this is something you wouldn't be surprised to hear from us, but a concern is that this emergency is really pointing out some of the deficiencies we have in our broadband infrastructure and access. It's stretching everybody. We're relying, as you know, to conduct business remotely. Education is being conducted remotely, both higher ed and K-12. We're hearing anecdotally, it's very hard to measure. It's very hard to get those who would know to stop their busy days and explain to us and provide us with the specific information that there are some problems. There are some bandwidth issues, and some who are trying to participate in education are being left behind. And so we, as we move towards recovery, want to use this experience as more justification rationale as to why we need to have a more robust broadband in our rural parts of our state here. So other questions of Michele or comments to be made at this time?
So Tim, are you saying that if we had the same broadband as Slovenia, we wouldn't have these problems, right?
You know, when you put it that way, man, it's a little embarrassing, isn't it?
I think that's very true.
Yeah. Bobby Graham, are you on this call? I thought I saw that you might be having joined us. Okay. I was going to give you an opportunity representing Senator Hassan's office. Okay, if you join us, feel free to chime in. Any other questions of Michele or Tom as we have a couple other folks in the queue ready to present?
Hey, Tim, this is Bobby. I'm sorry about that. I was just on mute.
Oh, yeah. Bobby, thanks. Yeah, anything to share?
Yeah, so I'll just echo what Tom and Michele had just said. I think they did a pretty good job covering a lot of the operations that we're dealing with here at the federal level, but just really add that, the more people that we talk to, the more problems we're finding, unfortunately. So, but that's also good things. And so I just want to put out, a message to all of you that says, feel free to take our contact information and disseminate it to anybody that you know, and let us know about all of the roadblocks that you're running into along the way, because each one of these situations that we're hearing about seems a little bit unique, but it's really important for us to understand this moving forward as we look towards the next packages. So just want to echo those points that really do not hesitate to reach out to us about anything, because that there's just a lot of little things that keep coming up that we need to really address as a delegation. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. We really appreciate the three of you being in on today's call. Feel free to join us, to stay with us as we continue the meeting. And we hope you're available in the future. You're always there for us. We really appreciate the connectivity and the great work you do. Joining us also today, we have Kevin Peterson with New Hampshire Community Development Finance Authority. And Kevin, are you in a position to address the group at this point?
Yeah, thanks to all. CDFA is, like many other resource agencies, trying to shift our resources as quickly as we can to be more responsive to COVID-19. I want to share a screen here with you. Oh, can't do that. Well, I'll send some resources around. Basically, the three things that we're doing. Number one, trying to provide as much flexibility as we can to existing grantees and borrowers. We have a $5 million state tax credit program. We're trying to open up those allocated tax credit resources to nonprofits who may have their big development project on hold but need resources right away to continue to function. So we're trying to pivot to make those resources available. We're providing some forbearance to some of our lenders or to some of our borrowers. Number two, we're trying to shift existing resources as best we can. And the largest chunk of resources we have is the Community Development Block Grant Program. We have about $8.5 million of already allocated 2020 funds, and we're looking at ways that we can streamline and shift the deployment of those funds. And as Michele mentioned, there's another slug of CDBG money coming in. We hope to have guidance from HUD and be able to lay out a plan for deploying those resources within the month. And many of those dollars are going to need to be deployed in 2020. So we'll be probably doing additional rounds of housing and public facilities grant applications. We're looking at ways that we can move into public services, which is a category that we haven't used before, but is going to be more aligned with the needs that we're seeing with COVID-19. And then this week, we're launching, our third major effort is to launch a nonprofit response fund in conjunction with the Center for Nonprofits and the Business Finance Authority. We hope to have as much as $2 million available to deploy in increments of up to $100,000 to support nonprofits as they're meeting COVID-19 resources and needs in the community. We have a webinar that's going to describe that fund tomorrow morning at 9:15, and I will post when I'm done here in the chat box. I have several web resources, but the nonprofit response fund is really intended to provide ready dollars for the nonprofit community to expand their COVID-19 response, to help tide them over until other resources are available. We'll also have some special resources available to our microenterprise technical assistance providers. I also wanted to mention that there's some really good information starting to flow from other communities. And I had a conversation with Tim Cummings, who's the Director of Economic Development and Planning for the City of Nashua. They've developed a really wonderful business survey, and they've given us the sort of blank version of that to share, which I'll also put in the chat box. It's a Google Doc, but it's a way to take the pulse of the business community. And this may be something that the Greater Keene Chamber wants to do for its business community, to find out how businesses are doing now, what resources they need, what some of the challenges are. And then Nashua's intent is to replicate that survey on a periodic basis going forward to see how the needs may change. So I will send that around as well. And I'm happy to stop there and answer any questions.
Excellent, Kevin. Thank you. Some really good stuff going on. Questions of Kevin? We will look for those links that you can send for tomorrow's meeting, and we have our radar set for more information about CDBG and what opportunities might be available as that becomes more clear. Thanks so much. And I hope you can, Todd, are you seeing anyone raising their hand?
I would just jump in for a second. Tim, this
Hi, Phil.
Phil Sutter from the Chamber. Thank you, Kevin, for that. I'm aware of some of the work other chambers around the state are doing with respect to surveys. We're working on one as well, and we're trying to draw some of the same kinds of information that some of the other chambers from around the state are doing. So anything you can forward to me that you are aware of, it may be that I'm not aware of it, so forward it along, and we do plan to do that.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat box so everybody can see it.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Kevin. Other questions of Kevin? Yeah. Yeah, I have one. Kevin, is that Monadnock behind you?
No, it's actually the north end of the Mount Mansfield range, looking from Johnson, Vermont. So
okay, close enough.
it's where my son went to school. So it's a special place.
Very cool, very cool. Please, if you can stick around. I know Charlie French indicates, who's with us today, indicating he has to get to another meeting. I wonder, Charlie, do you have something you wanted to address the group with?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Can you hear me okay?
Coming through loud and clear.
A couple of new resources that UNH Cooperative Extension has developed in coordination with organizations around the state. One of them I shared in the chat box is an interactive food access map. We had been getting lots of inquiries about where to get food. So this lists on an interactive geospatial map where you can get food, whether it's a grocery store, a pantry, food kitchen, farm stand, CSA, et cetera. And so it's crowdsourced. So we posted this, I believe, yesterday or this week, and it's getting populated pretty quickly. So organizations are putting data up there. And a lot of chambers of commerce and others are linking this information out to their businesses and to the community. We also did another parallel map, which is a farm products map. So farmers across the state can post their what they have available for produce and things like that and how to get it. So those are a couple of resources. Since I spoke with some of these folks on the call on April 1st, UNH, the University of New Hampshire, formed a task force to help direct the university's resources to help with the response. I didn't make the meeting, but I somehow became chair of the external partnership part of the task force. So my job is to connect with organizations as well as business organizations to find out what sorts of needs they may have, whether it's manufacturing, device creation, lab testing, et cetera, because we want to be able to leverage the resources we have at UNH to be able to meet, to help support some of the needs for PPE or manufacturing needs that various businesses have. So other than that, we're just trying to do our best in Cooperative Extension to help communicate information that all of you have out there. We're connecting with communities that we've worked with on community and economic development work over the past. And so I think that's about all I have, but just happy that everybody's doing great work and we're all seem to be coordinating well together. So thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. And they picked a good chair, and that's, I guess, easier to do when you don't show up.
Apparently, so.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing the info. Any quick questions of Charlie? Great. I know you got a busy schedule. I appreciate that you're able to be with us again today. Molly Kaler, you have a standing call coming up in just a few minutes. Is there something that you might want to share at this point?
Sure, Tim, thanks. I just have a quick update. Many of you heard me speak last week, and it's already been discussed earlier on this call, but our agency does have that website that was linked in the chat box a little earlier in the conversation, where we're trying to aggregate a lot of these great resources that have already been mentioned today. So please continue to check back to that on a regular basis because, you know, as the situation is very fluid and new resources keep getting added daily, we continue to update that website. Again, I don't think I mentioned last time I talked about the website that as part of that, we are coordinating the state's efforts for the PPE, the personal protective equipment, and there is a specific link on that website for businesses to either inquire about needs that they have or to offer their expertise and perhaps contributing to that cause. And then I will say, I did see Tim sent me a note earlier just to reminding me that it would be good to do a quick update about NBRC. Tom gave a good update about the Congresswoman's legislation that she recently introduced, and that is in regards to the federal funding ceiling that has to do with NBRC. Previously, under existing legislation, you can only fund a project with 80% total federal funds, and 20% funding has to come from non-federal sources. So that legislation is to address that piece of the match situation. But without getting too much into that, though, the one update that is already definitely happening is that the deadline for this grant round has been extended. It was previously, the application deadline was previously May 15th, and it has been extended to June 1st. So I'd encourage anybody who's interested in Northern Border Regional Commission grants for this grant round to visit the nbrc.gov website. We'll continue to post updates there regarding the current grant round. You'll see there it notes the change in the application deadline, but other updates, should they happen, will also be posted there. So those are my quick updates. Does anybody have any questions? And thank you, Tim, for NBRC's Northern Border Regional Commission.
Yeah, no, thank you, Molly. Questions of Molly? Just to be clear, municipalities and businesses in Cheshire County are eligible for Northern Borders Regional Commission. This is just the second cycle, the second year that Cheshire County is eligible. And so if you have questions, looking for more information, the NBRC website is a source, and the Planning Commission here at Southwest is a source for information as well. And I'm sure Molly is also taking calls. So an opportunity. We have until June 1st now, a little bit of extra time to get an application pulled together.
And just to clarify, it's municipalities, government entities, and nonprofits. Businesses are not eligible. So it's nonprofits and municipalities could apply. But yes, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'll add my email address for those of you who might not have it handy, and I'll add the nbrc.gov web address in the chat box in a moment here before I jump off.
Thanks, Molly, and thanks for that clarification. Otherwise, we'll open the doors to all the businesses. Okay, so next up is Vardhan Bajpai with us. Vardhan is the business advisor with the New Hampshire Small Business Development Center. Welcome.
Thank you. A couple of updates that recently happened. One is from the unemployment office. The $600 that the federal government has promised to unemployed folks due to COVID situation might come to fruition in their bank accounts from next week, and that's what they're trying to accomplish. Any employers who are affected by it and are unemployed as well will receive that. So if anybody has applied, they should, and if they have not, they feel like they should try to take advantage of that in this situation. Also, the EIDL grants started to pay out from this week onwards, so folks should start to see. I'd love to hear back for what your experience was with the application. So hopefully we can connect, and hopefully you're the one to receive it. So just let's keep in touch. Those are the two major updates from here. If anybody has applied back more than a week and a half back, and they did not see a box to check for the $10,000 or up to $10,000 advance on their loan through EIDL application, please reapply as soon as possible, because you will not see that advance until you apply. That's pretty much the update from us.
Vardhan, thank you. And I wonder if you could type in the chat box a way for people to contact you in the event they might have a question over these items that you're updating on. And while you're doing that, opportunity for folks to direct questions to Vardhan. Anyone? Well, what took you so long? You put that up just like that. Thank you. And thanks for joining us. And I hope that you will continue to be at the table as we move forward in trying to share information with the community. Erika Alusic-Bingham is the Western Hillsborough County Family Services Coordinator for Southern New Hampshire Services. And Erika, might you have something to share at this point?
Hi.
Hi.
Tom, I'm using my phone, so it's a little bit harder. Yes, what we wanted to share today, and I was hoping that Keith would be around as well but there are 5 CAPs in the state, community action programs, and they're working to keep families afloat right now during the crisis. And one of the things that we're thinking about, there's a lot of people who've never had to access services or a social safety net or any of those type of things like fuel assistance or even applying for food stamps. So we have created phone lines for them to call in and get some help with that. And we have emergency teams in place, and basically they would answer the phone and then immediately refer to the right part of the county. Southern New Hampshire Services, for instance, does Rockingham and Hillsborough counties. Southwestern Community Services does Cheshire and Sullivan, right? Sullivan counties. And then there's Belknap County CAP, and then there's Tri-County CAP is above that. So there's a cap for every county, basically. So you want to make sure that you're accessing the right cap when you make your phone calls. I did give a couple of documents that have information to reach out for folks with phone numbers. Those are mostly the western edge of Hillsborough County information. It has the 2 family resource centers in the area, the Grapevine and the River Center. They're not taking in-person. Most of those offices, you'll not get an in-person, but you will be able to leave a message and someone will call you back. On those documents, I highlighted my phone number primarily because then I can for sure get you to the right phone number if you haven't had luck with that previously. So I did give Todd one that has all of Southern New Hampshire Services contact information on it, and another document that has a list of a lot of different places that you can get services. One of the things I left out, and I realized that after I sent it, Todd, was the places like Reality Check and the Doorway are still offering services. Things that you might be able to get from these services would be assistance with rent, assistance with food, assistance with fuel assistance. Like, one of the things that's important to note is that fuel assistance applications usually aren't taken after April 1st, and they've been extended to May 29th so that people who are now experiencing income loss can apply. They might not have been eligible earlier. Another thing that people, and I can't do this on my phone at the same time because I don't have a keyboard, but if you need to apply for food stamps or medical, you can contact online. There's an online application process for newhampshireeasy.nh.gov. So that wasn't on any of those documents, but I can type it in after I'm done. I can add it to the chat box. But that would be how you would apply for food stamps, SNAP, or even cash assistance. Obviously, with any of these things that you're applying for, or your employees are applying for, or your community members are applying for, there's going to be a little bit of a wait time, and that, of course, is because there's so many claims coming at the same time. Just like with unemployment, please be patient. These are the heroes that there's lots of unsung heroes, but a lot of the people sitting on the other side of this phone, they're actually working in positions that maybe they hadn't always filled, so that things can get done. So be patient with those folks at those state agencies like Health and Human Services. They're working hard, and they're trying to get everybody processed and everybody food. I know the Monadnock United Way has a new COVID-19 relief fund as well that's going directly toward nonprofits or partner agencies. And some of it's in the form of concrete dollars. I know that the River Center is working with the United Way and helping to hand those out. Like my agency in particular, Western Hillsborough County Family Services, is going to be getting some cards for groceries, so that I have the knowledge that there are people out there who aren't able to get formula and diapers. That's a hard one. That's not at all the food pantries, and so I will be able to give grocery cards for that. So that's just a small, like a snapshot of what's available out there. It's really important to just make the phone call, make sure that as an employer or as a business leader or even as a community member, just encourage people to reach out. Even if the person on the other end of the line in that service agency doesn't have the service you're looking for, they will be able to point you in the right direction. That's especially true with community action. We're all sort of like almost like a mandate. That's the wrong word, but all of us know the next number you should call. And we're trying not to do just a hard like handoff. We're trying to make it a sort of a soft handoff where we're sticking with you through the process of getting that next service. But by all means, one of the easiest places for people to get a little help is our energy programs. So fuel assistance and there's electric discounts that are available. And we can help you work with Eversource too. So no one should get shut off during this time, obviously. But there's that question about what's going to happen in 2 months or 3 months when all these programs sort of have run their course for that emergency help, and what are we going to do next? So community action's working on that as well. So we just wanted to make sure that people knew how to get in touch with us. If you need to get in touch with Southwestern Community Services, that's a number I didn't put on my resource guide, but that would be 352-7512. So, I mean, I think it's mostly important to emphasize that there are services available and to just apply and see what happens. And also, some people may have been denied, but they can try again, because a lot of these programs will ask for 4 weeks of income. And so if they had some income and now they don't have any income, they should definitely reapply. And can't emphasize that enough, to keep trying and to keep calling, because we're out here and we want to make sure that everyone is helped and they receive the services that they need to stay afloat during this time.
Erika, thank you for that information and for the inspiration. You and Keith and your colleagues are really on the front lines of connecting those who have needs with the resources that are available. And so we can't really underestimate the importance of what it is that you're doing. Appreciate you sharing the information. Todd will make sure to share that, the links and the contact information with everybody. And we hope that you'll continue to be part of these ongoing discussions that we're having. And are there questions of Erika and some of what she had brought forward? Now would be a good time to raise your hand or just speak up.
Yeah, Tim.
Hey, Tim.
Yeah.
Tim, it's Keith. I am here, Keith Tebow from Southwestern. I've been listening.
Hi, Keith.
The whole time. How you doing? Cognizant of time here, I just want to reiterate that telephone number that was given out. It is 603-352-7512. Help with utilities of any sort, housing, mortgage, rent, emergencies that have come up. We're here, and I again would urge people to call us if they have any issues. 352-7512. We can help.
Great, thank you, Keith. And I'm not surprised you've been with us. You're probably multitasking in multiple meetings at the same time, but we are entrusted in you to coordinate this and facilitate today's meeting of our Economic Development Advisory Committee. And we really appreciate you and other members of the committee allowing us to use your meeting time to share information resources that are available in the public health emergency. We are willing to, we had a meeting a week ago and we're having another one today, and we at Southwest Region Planning Commission are prepared to continue having meetings like this if there is interest in us doing so. Todd, I wonder if you might want to pose a question here to the group, or some talk about a survey you had mentioned.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. I'm for folks who are participating via their computer, I'm launching a quick poll here along the lines that Tim was mentioning. We're considering hosting more of these webinars. We realize people are doing a lot of these during the current situation, so we want to be aware of Zoom fatigue, but we also want to make sure that we're providing a forum for this type of information to get out there, and for resource providers to be communicating with one another. And for folks on the phone, I don't believe there's a way for you to participate in the online poll at the moment, so feel free to shoot me an email if indicating your interest in participating in future meetings. And my email is thorner@swrpc.org. So as Tim mentioned, we're considering more of these webinars, and just trying to get a sense of how much interest there is out there in participating in more meetings like these.
Thanks, Todd, and I hope everyone's taking the survey.
Yeah, it looks like we have some results coming in, so I'll leave that posted for a while, and encourage folks to it's just one question, whether you're interested in participating in more meetings like these, yes or no, let us know.
Yes, and I was trying to be helpful, and I just mistyped your email address, Todd, so I'm resending it in the chat box.
Great. And I should also add, if there's content or material or people that you want to hear from in a regional forum like this, don't hesitate to reach out, and perhaps we can get that person on the line. Are you interested in hearing from, for example, the New Hampshire Municipal Association? I don't know what their availability is like, but we would be happy to reach out to organizations like them and others if there are resources that you're interested in learning more about and you haven't seen a good way to do that thus far.
Well, I want to thank Erika and Vardhan and Charlie and Molly and Kevin and Michele and Tom and Bobby, everyone who participated in agenda item 2, and obviously questions that were put forward, very helpful. We are trying to be cognizant of everybody's busy schedules. However, just a couple more things. I'm going to turn attention to the agenda for today's Economic Development Advisory Committee meeting. Next up on the agenda, and this is an opportunity for members of EDAC, the committee, in terms of partner updates. Anything you'd like to share at this time relative to this discussion or the continuation of these meetings, or anything going on within your organizations?
I'll repeat, if you're on the phone, you can unmute yourself by pressing *6.
Tim, the city of Keene has been responding to this incident, both with services such as police and fire, but also, trying to stand up all sorts of resources from the standpoint of response. We've also stood up resources for the business community, and are trying to connect with the business community as much as we can to get them into the right places. So I'm glad to see the federal partners here as well as the state partners, because that's very important. And you know, we've also begun to talk about what happens when this thing's over, and where do we go from there. And so information as to how people are doing in getting those resources, how successful they are, and then maybe at some point conversation as to, you know, recovery and recovery aspects probably will be very important, and in sharing those resources and, you know, figuring out what to do.
Great points, Med. Thanks for sharing. There's one I'd like to put on the table, and this is in anticipation of the flow of some stimulus funds we've been hearing about in some of the updates at both today's meeting as well as the one last week, and perhaps more to come. But we have, through the Economic Development Advisory Committee, opened up a window to receive nominations for what we call priority projects and programs for inclusion in the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy for Southwest New Hampshire. That's the SEDS document. And the reason that this is an issue is because some federal funding sources require the designation of a project in the SEDS document itself. So if you, anyone on this meeting, this call, might be thinking of a particular project or a program that you would like to put forward to be eligible for some of the anticipated stimulus funds that we are expecting, you might want to nominate your project or program lickety-split so that you can be considered to have your project or program designated in the SEDS document as a priority. I'm not trying to say that you have to be in a priority project in the SEDS, but there are a couple of funding sources. For example, EDA, Economic Development Administration within the U.S. Department of Commerce, is looking to see that that box is checked. And there might be other ones as well. So we would encourage, although we'll keep that nomination window open for a period of time, we would encourage that you nominate your project or program before the end of April. And so I see that Todd has posted in the chat box the link for the SEDS nomination form. So if you have any questions about how to fill out that form or what it is we're talking about, what I'm gabbing about right now, please contact Todd or myself and we can share more. But just real quickly, yeah, nominations in by the end of April will be timely as we expect information to continue to come forward about the federal programs. And yes, Kevin, the region's broadband needs are addressed not only in the SEDS document. In fact, there are a couple priority projects and programs, some of which are less active today in that document, like fast roads, for example, and the work that we're doing to identify rural broadband needs in the region. Also, there is a a broadband plan for Southwest New Hampshire. That's another resource. And our Monadnock Region Future, the regional plan for Southwest New Hampshire, also documents broadband needs. So hope that's helpful. Any other partner updates at this point, members of the EDAC? And I think it would be fine to extend beyond members of EDAC if there's anything anyone else would like to share as we're wrapping up towards the end of today's meeting. Any other updates or comments that folks would like to make? Looking at the meeting agenda.
Yeah, Tim, sorry, I see that Art Robert has his hand up at the moment, so I just unmuted you, Art. So
Hi, Art.
Hi, Art. Oh, I'm gonna try this one more time. There, it looks like he's unmuted now. Art, can you hear?
Kevin, I can hear you. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. I'll just be brief. My name's Arthur Robert. I'm the new president of the Monadnock Economic Development Corporation. I'm in day 6, drinking from a fire hose, given everything that's happening here. I'm following in Jack Dugan's footsteps and his many accomplishments. I look forward to working with all of you on promoting economic development in the region. And I look forward to working as part of the EDAC team.
Art, Tim here, and thank you for that. And welcome to EDAC, welcome to New Hampshire and the Monadnock region. There's a lot to learn, I'm sure, and we want to be a resource to you as well. I think you'll find folks around the EDAC table to be very approachable, and so don't hesitate as you're kind of networking and you know, making yourself known in the region, to reach out to folks around the EDAC table, and Todd can share with you contact information. I'm sure folks will be pleased to hear from you and be a resource. So welcome again, and we look forward to having you part of the discussion. So I wanted to just pay a quick moment to the next meeting item on the agenda for our Economic Development Advisory Committee. It's our next quarterly meeting. That's how we're scheduled for this group routinely, but we do have the ability to meet on an as-needed basis, more frequent than quarterly. Our quarterly meeting would bring us to the 8th of July. But there may be reason for us to need to pull our committee together prior to that. And I can think of one reason I was just talking about a little bit ago, and that is the consideration of nomination of priority projects and programs. We don't want to leave anybody out in the cold. So if we determine at the staff level here at the Planning Commission that it behooves us to consider nominations prior to July 8th, so that you know, projects that might want to tap into stimulus funds that might be available, if that SEDS designation might give them a leg up, we want to be able to jump on that. So we're going to keep our finger on the pulse of the timing of that, and we'll be reaching out if we feel the need for either that reason or some other reason to bring the EDAC group together prior to that July 8th date. So any thoughts, comments about that or about anything else before we adjourn today's meeting? Well, hearing none, I just want to thank everyone for joining us, and thank again those who presented under agenda item 2 today. Lots of great information and materials. Please take a look at the dedicated webpage that Todd referred to that will tie you to lots of other dedicated web pages relative to COVID-19. And we'll be doing email blasts. Visit the swrpc.org webpage and stay plugged in that way. So stay safe, stay well, and thanks everybody. Talk to you again soon.
Great, thanks, Tim.